Hello, and a very warm welcome to our next episode of the 6 new realities in the IP sector. My name is Ricardo, and I am the CEO of a company called EvoIP, which is a small patent engineering company. And what we do is we provide IP services for IP professionals. And what barely people know about me is that I'm quite recently in the IP sector, like 7 years ago. And back then, I had no knowledge at all. And I was listening to the advice to small children where they say like, if you don't have a clue, ask adults. So I was looking for the finest IP experts I could follow. Everyone that I met in the IP sector was immediately interviewing them, asking them about what kind of stories, lectures they have to share. And all that knowledge I comprehended over the years. And today, like it was also last week, is my turn to give something back. So I will show you and tell you about things that I have noticed and actually some ideas to overcome them. So please stay with me. And then if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to comment in the chat. I will later on, we have a dedicated Q&A session, and I will reply to any comment of you. I promise. So before we start, very important. There's something you have to be aware of in adult trainings and education. Is there's always this "I already know" trap. A lot of people in the IP sector, I barely met people which are stupid or so there. We are all very knowledgeable, and we have heard something, and a lot of things they may sound obvious to you. That can be, but it's a bit like soccer. And in Germany, we love soccer. You have to know there's the World Championship every 4 years, and directly 83 million people turn into the best soccer trainers ever and tell the trainer how they should play the game. But the thing is, like, are all of them World Championship soccer player? No, not even regional league soccer player, most of them. So what is the difference? We all know how to play soccer. It's a quite easy game, and a lot of Germans have played it as a child, even in leagues or so. That doesn't make you a world-class soccer player. And if you ask a world-class soccer player, hey, tell me how I become like you, world-class, they will tell you, oh, it's quite simple. 3 things: repetition, rehearsal, and adaptation. Which means there are 2 ways how this could end for you. This talk could end for you. You either think like, oh, I did already everything. I'm on the safe side. Yeah, okay. Or you think like, I haven't thought about this. I could do or not. I can do, but maybe I will start a project about this, or will discuss it in the team. No matter what you do, if you do once of this, I'm already happy because you made this time and all the effort paid. Because if it helps to improve a single person in this audience, I'm very happy. And all the effort was is thing. Now we have some first-time viewers which didn't watch the last episode. So I want to give a short recap. In our first episode, I was also talking about the 2 big external factors which are influencing our IP sector. One was COVID-19, which changed the world forever, without any doubt. For us, what is very important to know is there is now, I call it a pre-pandemic time and a post-pandemic time. And there's a difference about the values and the people, what they think, how they conducted business, and what we need to react on. In the pre-pandemic time, it was kind of mandatory to meet in person, to have conferences. The conferences were only possible if you go there in person. There was a lot of traveling involved. And in the post-pandemic time, it's fine now to meet a person first in a video call, and then really travel if it's necessary. In conferences, you either join in person or you attend virtually, and it's really important. So therefore, COVID-19 was a huge driver for digitalization and already speed up the trend which is actually happening. And the second is the war between Russia and Ukraine. Again, I will never come, the next time I can't go to Russia for any vacation because I said this is the war. For me, is it like this? And it shakes also the IP world because one aspect was that IP was weaponized. One thing was that Russia says, you can steal patents from anyone in unfriendly countries. That's not a problem. And the second thing was that even now hackers were breaking in computer systems of Russian companies and actively disclosing the information. And the next thing is also the economic effects this war has. There can be a global recession, which I think will happen, and also budgets will be shorter and tightened. So, and one budget for sure they want to discuss is the IP budget, because the thing with IP is the impact always takes some years to happen, and sometimes you don't even notice what you have done, and therefore it is really difficult and a bit tricky. So that are the external factors. Nevertheless, I like to quote here Jack Welch, which is a person that I really admire from management, which is we have to face the reality as it is, not as it was or you wish it to be. Therefore, there will be never ever again the world we had it 2 years before. I always like to say, hey, there's this common knowledge to say that history repeats itself, but I was not expecting that the 20th century is repeating in a couple of years now. Therefore, but we have to live with it. Then in the last episode, I was giving 3 IP realities we have to deal with. Now I will give them here in short. Please watch the recording if you're interested in it, what this means exactly and how to overcome it. But the first very important one was the client becomes a customer and the IP market is a buyer market. You have to know, one of my clients from our first encounter, he told me that was the sentence that really stuck with him. And that was also one part why he was developing his supplier portfolio, kicking out some companies, introducing new companies, mine, thankfully. But the thing was just like they were really asking, is there enough diversity in our portfolio, and are all suppliers have a customer-centric approach, which puts us to their priority and not the other way around. Then the second very important reality is everything becomes digitized, necessary or not. And I know there are people who really like to take notes on paper, presence meetings, and have everyone in the office you can go to and talk to. Nevertheless, the world is a bit changing, and it's okay. What we have learned in the post-pandemic time was it's okay that people work from home and still will work. And you as an IP manager has also to face that a lot of the inventions, they're now digitized. And also the question is how you can protect the digital business model. And it's not only anymore about patents, there are also other IP rights. That's called IP manager, not patent manager. So please have this in mind. And you need to have on one hand, adapt your work style to be digital, to work from every place, and even if there's again a curfew or so, you can still keep up your work. And on the other hand, you have a certain understanding of what is about a digital invention, how you could protect it, how is a draft for a software patent good or bad, and is this software or digital solution patent worthy or not, or how you could protect it. And therefore, we need to improve our understanding here. And the third one was that islands belong to dreams and not to IP management. What I want to talk about this is sometimes we have the feeling that the IP management department is somehow isolated, and this is what we shall overcome. Their function is silos in our organizations. And sometimes they are there for a reason. It's okay. That's not the point to question this. The thing is just how could we overcome the negative effects of silos? And this is something you can design in your IP management. And there was one proposal, for example, was introducing IP ambassadors, which means from any department you have at least 1 or 2 members which you will train to become really, really IP aware and to become the go-to persons in terms of IP. And with that, become all your eyes and ears in the organization, and as well help the people to reach out to IP to make conveniently as possible. So that is one idea. And the other aspect is it's not only also your company. You have also now to deal with other companies. Everything tends to become a smartphone nowadays, or at least a computer. So if you're not a semiconductor company, it can be that you need to rely on other technologies now, which you have never used before. And for that, you need to have a certain interoperability with other industries and also perhaps with your competitors. You need to be prepared. Therefore, it makes sense to have a certain understanding about licensing and licensing agreements, what are standard essential patents, and how they apply. Therefore, this was in the last episode. If you are interested, please check it out, but not today, because not now, because we will take further. Now I will talk about the other three IP realities that we have. Reality number 4 is value is not the same as value. Now, since more than a decade, I was I learned that there's something is called value-oriented IP. I think the first time Beat Weibel from Siemens was writing a nice article 2009, and this was all about this, that that we have to go away from as IP department, you receive something from your R&D or your business, and you file a patent or try to protect it somehow. It really goes in this direction, that you say, okay, I want to understand what is valuable for our customers, what is the demand, and that we create IP in that way, so that even the IP departments give inputs to the R&D to invent in a certain direction. And therefore, this is one part of value-oriented IP management. There's even more. And therefore, this is a very good thing. What you have to know, that there's just one thing. Value is not the same as value. We have to talk about what is the definition about value. And if you ask me, value is what your stakeholders perceive. Value is not a high quality patent. That's a different thing. That's a quality patent. High quality patent, which is which is really good drafted, which is very good to enforce, which is bulletproof. That's a different thing. That has also some value. What you have to be aware of is, no matter how much you pay for a patent, no matter how much effort you take for a patent, the value, and therefore you can listen to the IP evaluation lectures of Professor Woods or so, the value is not easy to depict. And therefore, it's not a question of effort. It's always about what is the value for others. And therefore, you need to get an understanding who are your stakeholders and what is important to them. And with your IP management, you could try to direct in a direction where you could say, yeah, there could be some value. And also, therefore, the so-called junk patents or low-quality patents. Now, sometimes I think that, come on, what they have filed at the competitors totally looks totally weird. Is you still need them, because sometimes if we want to predict what will be in 10 years or 20 years, which is the typical lifetime of a patent or a design right, it's very difficult and we cannot be sure. And sometimes you have to take a guess and take a bit of risk, and therefore it's not that easy. How you could make it more manageable. And as you know, and all of you, I think most of you are very profound in terms of portfolio management, especially the patent portfolio management, is about that we introduce a technological taxonomy so that we can cluster, that we can manage our portfolio, that we understand that, for example, if I have an internal combustion engine, that this patent, for example, belongs to the gear shaft or so, something like that, the gearbox or so. What is now an issue, and we had this as a project with a client, was very interesting, and I want to say thank you for my client that I could be part of this, is also the customer benefits. That you introduce a taxonomy of customer benefits. What people expect from your products. What are the usage they want to have, and what needs or demands does fulfill that pattern or enable that pattern. I give you an example. This is from Professor Wurzer, but I like it because it was very catchy. And it was about the Thermomix, which is a kitchen machine. And you have to understand the Thermomix. It has one of the best electrical engines that you can buy in the kitchen realm. It's really like this, very high class and so on. And a lot of the IP designed before before the TM5 was about that engine because it was a technical aspect. And the question is, if you would go with your wife or your husband to a supermarket and you see that kind of machine, would you say, "Oh, I would buy it because it has the best electrical engine"? Would you really care about that the efficiency is perhaps 10%, even 20% higher or lower than the other one? That's not really the buying factor for a kitchen machine. Usually you buy a kitchen machine because you want to be that shall be an aid to your cooking. And therefore, if you want to steer your patent portfolio, develop your patent portfolio in a direction where you fulfill the customer needs that really actually leads to the decision to buy your product, it's very handy to also include additional to your technological taxonomy, also the benefit taxonomy. For example, is this a solution which makes your products more environmentally friendly? And also make it more durable or so. And all this added values help you to answer questions, for example, for your management. Hey, there's this new trend that we want to be more sustainable. What is the number of patents that we have in this field? And for you, if you have done this already, this categorization of your portfolio, you can really easily answer this, and that's a good thing. And therefore, please think of this first idea. The second idea is, usually what people do is in their innovation pipeline, they have something like for a way how they create the IP assets and manage the IP assets, and at some point there will be a rating of the invention. And usually this is a rating where experts come together and they discuss certain aspects. Now, I put here also a link if you need a reference here for how to do it. There's a link which easily explains it, and you have certain dimensions. And what I often now overlooked, what is often overlooked, and I also got to know about this is, what if you sometimes have a very radical invention? It's really sometimes if you have a very brilliant inventor, it's so far off the branch that you couldn't perceive the value. And it's also not matching the business plan, it's also not matching the competitor products. But it can still be good. And the thing is like, do you have a metric that allows this? This is, for example, what I call the consumer benefits, that you, for example, put also the radicalness. No? How radical is this technology? And if it's very radical, my recommendation is try to have a certain percentage of your portfolio of radical things, just because you can't predict the life in 10 to 20 years. And sometimes this radical invention could be surprisingly can be one of the most valuable patents. Can be. It's just a thought I want to give you. Another type of consumer benefits is if you're aware of the Canyon model. There are basically like 3 types of requirements a customer have to be satisfied. Some of them, they're so-called hygiene requirements, which means, for example, if you have a car, you just expect that it has brakes. You don't buy a car because it says it has brakes. Then you have performance requirements, the amount of horsepower a car has, the consumption of fuel or energy. And then you have the third one are the requirements that really brings excitement and joy. For example, back then, in the 90s, it was an AC. Then nowadays, I would say it's automated driving and the connection to the digital world. And what you can learn from that is There are some types of requirements that consumer really enjoy, and sometimes it can be that a patent or so has from the traditional rating a very low score, but can be interesting in terms of the chronotype of consumer benefits that you think about. And also in such kind of ratings, it may always make sense to include even non-technical salesperson who can be the consumer voice and can speak from the view of the consumer. Okay, is this something they consider as relevant or not? Now let's speak about the fifth reality, which is very important. It's about that IP management is not a legal or technical topic. And you think like, oh my God, Ricardo, what do you say here? It has to do something with legal and also has to do something with topic. But first and foremost, it's also about managing assets. So before we start with this and go further, I found that very interesting on the side sometimes, and it was very interesting to see that most IP professionals, half of them stay only up to 4 years within a company, and then they switch jobs. I mean, yes, there's there's a high demand for IP professionals, especially if they're very good and motivated. That's great. But on the other hand, why they leave? And therefore, what I believe is that if I looked into the job ads of IP manager positions and head of IP, and often what I saw was there was a lot of requirements, like you have to have a person which has a natural science background or legal background. There's certain knowledgeable about IP, but if you look up the definition of IP management, it says an overall term for strategic and operational activities as well as management tasks, which are part of the commercially oriented handling of intellectual property assets. And therefore, here I have something I want that I learned from an entrepreneur coach, which is Stefan Merat. And this is usually the types of task for people who start a business. But we can also put this now to our IP branch, where we think about, okay, if we look at our weekly schedule, we see that we have some tasks which are professional. We draft invention disclosures or handle invention disclosures. We review patent drafts. We do some administrative work. So that's all professional work, which means myself as a profession, we do this. And then you have other tasks, or activities, which belongs to the manager role. So, for example, that you have to fulfill certain KPIs. Therefore, you take action to do it. You organize resources to be capable to provide it. And for example, also you do the team leading task or so, which takes time. And the third criteria, this is now different from Stefan Merat, because it's not the entrepreneur in this case, because the IP departments belong within a company. It's the intrapreneur. And that is for me the activities, the role you need to fulfill to strategically evolve your IP management, to step up the IP game. Which means, for one hand, you have to ensure a strategic alignment so that you can serve the overall strategy of the company, that you manage the stakeholders, and that you improve and develop your IP management system further to a new level that which fulfills the future needs of your company. And this, and if you now look on our job ads, do we really require this from the people that we hire? And therefore, I would say it's difficult. No? I wouldn't rely on the HR process at the moment. No? Therefore, you see these three types of roles. And my idea for you is that you hire for the right roles rather than skills or professions. I give you an example. It's me. You have to know I have a background in IT, especially more in IT management. This was the study, my degree that I did, my first degree. If I would look now to work as an IP manager, I'm not hireable because I'm not a patent attorney and I don't have a natural science background, a science background or an engineering degree. And this is the problem. And I can tell you, I get so much knowledge about IP management. I have people who ask me for my advice. I believe I could be a good IP manager. I also have the trainings for this. But the problem is, I wouldn't, from the requirements, I wouldn't be hired for it. So, therefore, have this in mind that you need sometimes the people which fulfills the other roles as well, depending on your individual context. Now, a first thing to do is now, because we all see that you receive a lot of CVs or so, that's sometimes difficult. I I uh, I recommend the following: that you hire people you may know. If I mentioned before, you maybe have built up some IP ambassadors. You may can get them a promotion to become an IP manager, or you develop existing team members. If you have a brilliant IP assistant or patent engineer, which clearly shows the right attitude to perform the job, can be also a good thing. Or you have recommendations from your family and friends who says like, hey, I know here a good IP guy who can do this. And you can meet a person. Now, the last item is a bit difficult. Hire people from suppliers. If you know them, they're okay, and also the contract allows this, can be one thing, but be careful. And the second thing is then train them to that they also get now the knowledge and the skills. For example, all that list that you can see here, that's my training resources. From each, I took trainings and to build my knowledge. That therefore is my recommendation. Now, this is something which is belief in the non-fits. As I already explained, I wouldn't be the person who comes through an HR process. So also there are other people like people with which have this neurodiversity, which means people which are autism. And you will be surprised how many people in IP have autism. The problem is if such people in an interview or so, they really have a problem. For example, just because they perceive more visually than with their audio, and they need to listen to your voice first a couple of hours to actually distinguish it from other noises or other voices. And therefore, it's difficult for them to be in interview. That's for some of them really, really, really hard to get it to make their career. And therefore, is the question: if you have a person which totally sucks at their interview, can it be that it's due to such effects or so? And therefore, that person can be the most brilliant data science engineer you will ever get. And for patent portfolio management, business intelligence or so, or patent engineer tasks, they're brilliant. They're brilliant. The thing is, like, we would exclude them. Then my recommendation is for all the non-fits or so that will be kicked out from HR, think of making a standardized pre-employment assessment. Now, if you think of can be something, send them a task, which is a standard task you already prepared and which is also easy to correct for you. And then you can see, oh, the person got it or the person doesn't got it. And sometimes another thing is like you also have to feel what is the need for your IP management. Sometimes you need a manager, sometimes you need an entrepreneur, and sometimes you need a professional. And therefore, from the non-fits, is there someone who brings a very interesting key attitude or key skill which is relatable? For example, if you want to build a network, an innovation network or IP network within your company, it makes sense to have a person which is really extrovert and knows how to build networks and manage networks. So that could be another idea. This is now a really difficult topic. You don't have suppliers, you have partners. And I really experienced both, being a supplier and being a partner. And in advance, as I was preparing this webinar, I was very surprised how many sites you find which will proclaim that the large law firm business model is dying, and what you need to do instead, and how to make a future-proof business model for law firms. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And because I was always thinking like legal people, they're very legal, but they're very good entrepreneurs too. So this is interesting to read. The link is also there. And there's another aspect. You maybe have heard about this, the good hearts law. which is basically the principle every time a measure becomes a target, it actually ceases to be a good measure. And for our case, for example, if you say, I want to have 200 invention disclosures per year, you will get to 100. The problem is, does it become good patents? Does it become good invention? Where are the invention disclosures on a level where we can say, okay, the idea was really developed in a certain direction? We don't know. Or you says like, I only want invention disclosures which become a patent. Then you will get very few, and people will take more and more time to describe the invention disclosures. And perhaps sometimes you loses the race for the priority, and your invention comes too late. And therefore, this is Goodhart's law is a bit difficult. But if you have suppliers and you want to manage them, this is a bit difficult. It can come into play. How to steer them. Therefore, in the last episode, I spoke about supplier diversity, which means you have different types of suppliers and also a different maturity. For example, you can have your large law firm, which are great people and they're really experts and they're first class. But also you can have the a single attorney law firm, which is a young one, which recently started, but is so thankful and works for you. And therefore, with that, you have a certain diversity, and you can react to different technologies and also on different level on demands. But now I'm speaking about inclusion, and I really like this quote: "Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance." Which means for me that we need to think about how we can involve our suppliers, how we could introduce them to our business, and also we can learn from them. And therefore, I found it's very interesting. We are not the only smart people in the world. There are a lot of people which are actually even smarter than us. And I found this from McKinsey, which I like, because here you can find all the dimensions that you need to think about when you to improve your supplier relationship to be a partnership. Things like the strategic alignment or the value creation and sharing of the thing, the sharing of the certain understanding of such kind of a value definition. And therefore, this is very, very important that you invest in that that you build a partnership based on trust and inclusion. The next thing is, which is very important, as I mentioned earlier, you should take the time to introduce your suppliers to yourself, also to your business. Perhaps even let them be on site, show them inventions, show them the technologies or the products, and speak about the market, so that the people understand. Okay, that's the market. That's how the market works, and that is what is important to them. This enable your partner to work in a direction that is beneficial for you. This is now about the function scope, but what is about the business? And therefore, you have to understand the business model to overcome Goodhart's law. For example, a common practice is to bill by hour. And so far, it's fine because it's like the effort you take, the effort which is taken will be paid, which is fair for both sides. There's one problem. If you see it from a business side, the law firm has no incentivation to save time for you because they would lose money. I know a lot of them, they're very, very nice people and they also think about partnership, but still the system says make billable hours. And if a person can do it in 4 hours, there's no incentivation for it. Why should do it in 4 hours? When it takes 5, it gets more money. And therefore, or another aspect, for example, can be the business model that some law firms still pay the patent renewals, manage the patent renewals for the client and take a charge. If we now take this away, the people may think, okay, we still have our expenses. How we cover our expenses? We may increase our hourly rate to that client, or we just need more hours. And therefore, in a partnership, you can discuss how you make money and to build a win-win situation for both sides. This is the best. It's really the best. That you understand how your supplier or your partner makes his money, and the partner has also the chance to make good money. It's not a matter of price. It's really a matter about how much value do you get. And if the metric supports this, that you get the value that you want to have, and also the partner can live from that easily, that's then it starts making fun. And then also partners easily become friends. And there's a mutual feeling of respect and trust. And even if there's something that's where you decide for something, if there's this trust relationship, your partner comes to you, the supplier says like, "Hey Ricardo, think twice. I have some concerns," and this would be outside of any business thing, because if this would be just a supplier thing, he would say, "Okay, I will charge you. It's your problem," and therefore this is a good thing. And I said now a lot about law firms, supplier. This also goes for me as engineering services. And they're very good examples of law firms already doing this, building partnerships with others. This is not the point. Therefore, more important is just for us as IP manager, do we enable our suppliers to become partners? No, to have a partnership? And are we inclusive to them enough? So this was the 6th new realities. And there's a conclusion. Because first we spoke about what are values. And the second thing we spoke about to find the right people. And in the third thing, we spoke about building partnerships with our suppliers. And therefore, we have our IP team with that. And it concludes ourselves, it concludes the business and the suppliers. And I really like this idea from John Doerr, and I changed it a little bit to IP teams. That we need missionaries, which means people that actually believe in IP, that actually believe in the greater good, and they have a common understanding of values and dedicated to deliver value, and not IP teams of mercenaries, which means people, they receive a salary, they receive the money for it, but they don't care. And as soon as we care for each other, for our suppliers, for our customers, wonderful things will happen. And this is what I like you to invite you to think about this, that you say, okay, what is my mission? And are the people actually involved in this? And is your system designed to create value as you have defined value? Therefore, I want to say thank you. If you already this long with me, you have my never-ending respect, and I hope you liked it. We will now have the Q&A. So please follow us also on LinkedIn and myself or the company for more IP insights and IP webinars. Would be my pleasure to see you soon. And also, next time I will bring some guests. So stay curious. And now we will answer all your comments. Are there comments? Okay, it seems that there's a technical problem with the comments, but I want to say thank you for your time, and it was a lot of information, I know, and I wish you a wonderful week and that we see us soon. So stay innovating.